I brought in $3 million for my firm this year. My boss said congrats in front of everyone and gave me an Employee of the Year trophy. No raise. No promotion. I said cheap awards don't pay bills. He smiled. Next day I went numb. HR sent us all an email that said, the ballroom at the Marriott was packed. 200 employees, plus spouses, plus the board members who flew in for the annual gala. My table was front and center. They'd made sure of that. Gerald Whitmore stood at the podium, his silver hair catching the overhead lights, his $1,000 suit crisp against the burgundy curtain backdrop. He was holding something. A plaque. Crystal, maybe. Hard to tell from where I sat. And now, Gerald said, his voice warm and theatrical, the moment we've all been waiting for. Our Employee of the Year. Applause rippled through the room. My colleague Marcus, seated to my left, nudged my elbow. Grinned. Everyone at the table knew what was coming. This individual, Gerald continued, single-handedly brought in $3 million in new business this fiscal year. $3 million. That's a record for Whitmore and Associates, and I don't say that lightly. More applause. Someone whistled from the back. Rachel Vance, would you please come up here? I stood. The room erupted. Standing ovation. Chimeras flashed. My heels clicked against the hardwood as I made my way to the stage, and for a moment, just a moment, I let myself believe this might actually mean something. Gerald shook my hand. The grip was firm, practiced. He handed me the crystal plaque. It was heavier than it looked. Employee of the Year was etched across the front in gold lettering. My name underneath. The date. Rachel, Gerald said into the microphone, one arm around my shoulders, on behalf of the entire leadership team, congratulations. You've set a standard that we hope everyone in this room will aspire to. The applause swelled again. Gerald stepped back, gesturing for me to say a few words. I looked out at the crowd. My coworkers. My clients, some of them, sprinkled throughout. The junior associates who'd watched me work 80-hour weeks for the past 11 months. The partners who'd taken credit for my presentations more times than I could count. I leaned into the microphone. Thank you, Gerald. This is beautiful. I held up the plaque. Let the light catch it. Really beautiful. Crystal's nice, heavy. Probably cost what, $200? Maybe $3? Nervous laughter scattered through the room. Gerald's smile flickered. I'm curious though, I continued, keeping my voice pleasant, conversational. Is there anything else that comes with this? A raise, maybe? A promotion? Partnership track? Silence. Gerald's hand found my shoulder again. Tighter this time. Rachel, this isn't the... Because I ran the numbers, I said, not stepping away from the microphone. $3 million in revenue. My salary's $120. That's a 4% cost-to-revenue ratio. Industry standard for top performers is usually around 15%, minimum. So I'm just wondering if maybe there's an envelope somewhere. A letter? Something that actually pays my mortgage? The room had gone completely still. Gerald's face had reddened, but his smile stayed locked in place. That boardroom smile. The one he used when a deal was going sideways and he needed to project control. We can discuss compensation in the appropriate setting, he said smoothly. Tonight is about celebrating your achievements. Right. I looked at the plaque again. Cheap awards don't pay bills, Gerald. I said it clearly. Into the microphone. Loud enough that the board members in the back row heard every syllable. Then I walked off the stage. The applause that followed was scattered, confused. I didn't look back. I found my table, grabbed my clutch, and kept walking straight out the ballroom doors. Marcus caught up with me in the lobby. Holy shit, he breathed. Rachel. That was necessary. You just, in front of everyone. I know what I did. He stood there, mouth half open, like he wanted to say something else but couldn't find the words. I didn't wait for him to figure it out. They'd been pulling this for years. Not just with me. With everyone who actually produced. The firm had a pattern, and once you recognized it, you couldn't unsee it. They'd recruit hungry talent with promises of growth, partnership, equity. Then they'd work you into the ground, extract every ounce of value, and when it came time to deliver on those promises, there was always a reason it couldn't happen. Not this quarter. Not with the economy. Not until you proved yourself just a little more. The ones who complained got managed out. The ones who stayed quiet got promoted into middle management limbo, better titles, minimal raises, no actual authority. And the ones who actually threatened to leave? They got the Gerald treatment. The charm offensive. The lunch meetings. The vague assurances that big things were coming. I'd watched it happen to Sarah Chen 3 years ago. She'd landed the Morrison account, $2 million in annual retainers. They gave her a corner office and a 5% raise. When she pushed for partnership, they told her the timing wasn't right. 6 months later, she left for a competitor. Took the Morrison account with her. Gerald had called it a betrayal. Had badmouthed her to everyone in the industry who'd listen. But Sarah was smarter than all of them. Last I heard, she'd made partner at her new firm within 18 months. I should have followed her lead back then. Would have saved myself 3 years. Instead, I'd bought into the myth. Believed that if I just worked harder, produced more, made myself indispensable, they'd eventually have to recognize it was something real. $3 million. $3 million, and they gave me a crystal plaque and a pat on the back. The next morning, I woke up at 6 like always, showered, made coffee, sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open to my work email. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen. Part of me expected a message from Gerald. An angry one. A threatening one. Something acknowledging what had happened. There was nothing. I scrolled through the usual overnight traffic. Client queries. Calendar invites. A newsletter from the Bar Association. At 8:47 a.m., a new email appeared. From HR Department. To all staff. Subject, important policy reminder. I clicked it open. The message was 3 paragraphs. Formal language. Legal adjacent phrasing. The kind of thing that looked routine if you didn't know how to read between the lines. Dear team. As we continue into the new fiscal year, leadership wants to remind all employees of the importance of maintaining professional conduct at company events. Our gatherings are an opportunity to celebrate achievements and build community. Behavior that disrupts these occasions or reflects poorly on the firm is taken seriously and may result in disciplinary action, up to and including termination. Additionally, please be reminded that compensation discussions are confidential matters between individual employees and management. Public commentary on salary, benefits, or promotional decisions is not appropriate and may constitute a violation of your employment agreement. If you have concerns about your compensation or career trajectory, we encourage you to schedule a meeting with your supervisor or HR representative through the proper channels. Best regards. Human Resources. I read it twice. Then I read it a third time. The email didn't name me. Didn't have to. Everyone who'd been at that gala, everyone who'd heard what I said, would know exactly who this was about. They weren't just embarrassed. They were building a paper trail. This was the first step. The warning shot before the real ammunition. I'd seen this playbook before, watched them use it on others. Document the problematic behavior. Create a record of policy violations. Then, when they decided to pull the trigger, they'd have everything they needed to frame the termination as performance-related rather than retaliation. Clean, legal, defensible. I closed the laptop. Something cold settled in my chest. Not fear, exactly. Something harder than that. More still. I'd given them $3 million. And this was their answer. The first call I made was to my attorney. Diana Solis had handled my condo purchase 4 years ago, but she also did employment law. We'd stayed in touch. Coffee once or twice a year. She'd told me, more than once, that if anything ever went sideways at work, I should call her before I did anything else. I was done not calling. She picked up on the second ring. Rachel. It's been a while. I need a consultation. Today, if possible. A pause. What's going on? How fast can you be at your office? She must have heard something in my voice, because she didn't push. Give me an hour. I was there in 45 minutes. Diana's office was downtown, 15th floor of a glass tower that overlooked the river. Practical furniture. Law books on the shelves. None of the performative luxury that Gerald favored. I sat across from her desk and laid it out, everything. The gala. The plaque. What I'd said. The HR email. The pattern I'd observed over the years. The way the firm treated its top performers. The promises made and broken. The people who'd been managed out for pushing back. Diana listened without interrupting. Took notes. Asked clarifying questions only when necessary. When I finished, she set down her pen. You documented any of this? The promises they made about promotions, partnership? Some of it. Emails, mostly. They were always careful about putting things in writing, but there are breadcrumbs. We'll revisit this next quarter. Your trajectory is solid. That kind of thing. Performance reviews? Excellent across the board. Never below exceeds expectations. And the revenue figures, 3 million, that's verifiable? Down to the penny. It's all in the firm's own reporting system. My name's attached to every account I brought in. Diana nodded slowly. The HR email is interesting. They're clearly positioning to terminate, but they haven't made a move yet. That gives us a window. A window for what? Options. She leaned back. You could wait them out. Keep your head down, document everything, build a retaliation case if they do fire you. That's the safe play. Takes time. Might not go anywhere. What's the other play? You leave on your own terms. But strategically. Diana's eyes were sharp. Your employment contract, do you have a non-compete? 12 months. But it's narrowly scoped. I can't solicit existing clients for a year, but I can work for competitors. Interesting. What about the clients you personally brought in? The relationships you built? The contracts are between the client and the firm. But the relationships are mine. I'm their primary contact. In most cases, I'm the only person they've ever actually worked with. Diana smiled. Just slightly. Here's what I'm thinking. You resign, professionally. Give proper notice. Then, when clients reach out, and they will reach out, you tell them where you've landed. You don't solicit. You respond. That's an important distinction. Will it hold up? If we're careful. If everything's documented. If you don't step over the line. She paused. Have you thought about where you'd go? I had. I'd been thinking about it for months, actually. Long before the gala. Long before the plaque. The dissatisfaction had been building like pressure in a pipe, and I'd started quietly exploring options. Reached out to a few contacts. Had some preliminary conversations that had gone better than expected. Meridian Partners, I said. They've been recruiting me for almost a year. I told them I wasn't ready. And now? Now I'm ready. Diana made a note. Talk to them. Today, if you can. Get an offer in writing. Once you have that, we can move. I left her office with a plan taking shape in my head. Not an emotional reaction. Not a tantrum. A strategy. Gerald thought he was managing me. Thought the HR email would make me retreat, reconsider, fall back into line like everyone else. He had no idea who he was dealing with. The call with Meridian happened that afternoon. James Chen, their managing partner, picked up personally. We'd met at a conference 18 months ago, and he'd been persistent ever since. Not pushy, just consistently present. A lunch here, an email there. He knew my numbers. Knew my reputation. And unlike Gerald, he'd actually made concrete offers. Rachel, he said warmly. This is a surprise. I'm ready to talk. A beat of silence. Then, tell me what you need. I told him. Not everything, not the details of the gala or the HR email, but enough. I told him I was looking to make a move quickly. Told him what I'd accomplished, what I was worth, what I expected in return. James didn't negotiate. Didn't hedge. Didn't give me the usual dance about budget constraints or approval processes. I can have an offer letter to you by end of day tomorrow, he said. Base of 190, plus performance bonuses tied to revenue. Partnership track, 2 years, evaluated on merit. We move fast here. 190. Nearly 60% more than Whitmore was paying me. I'll need to review the contract, I said. Non-compete language, in particular. No non-compete. We don't do those. We figure if you want to leave, tying you down legally isn't going to make you want to stay. I almost laughed. The contrast was so stark it bordered on absurd. Send it over, I said. I'll have my attorney review it tomorrow. Looking forward to having you on the team, Rachel. The offer landed in my inbox at 4:47 p.m. the next day. Diana reviewed it overnight. By Friday morning, I'd signed. Monday, I walked into Whitmore and Associates for the last time. I didn't announce anything. Didn't make a scene. I went straight to Gerald's office and closed the door behind me. He was on a call. He held up one finger, wait, and kept talking. Something about quarterly projections. I stood there, patient, watching him perform for whoever was on the other end. Finally, he hung up. Rachel. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit. I didn't sit. I'm resigning, I said. Effective in 2 weeks. This is my formal notice. I handed him the letter. He didn't take it. Rachel, let's not be hasty. I understand you're frustrated. The gala was a miscommunication. I should have handled things differently. There's nothing to handle. I've accepted a position elsewhere. The decision is made. Gerald's smile thinned. The friendly mask slipping just slightly. I see. And where are you going? That's not relevant. Of course it's relevant. If you're going to a competitor. My contract allows me to work for competitors. The non-compete is limited to client solicitation, which I have no intention of violating. My attorney has reviewed everything. That landed. I saw it in the way his jaw tightened. You've already talked to a lawyer. I've done what's necessary to protect my interests. Something this firm never bothered to do. Gerald stood, slowly. He wasn't tall, but he had a way of using the space to project authority. It had intimidated me once. That felt like a long time ago. Rachel, I want you to think very carefully about what you're doing. You've built a career here. You have relationships, history. If you walk out that door, you're walking away from all of it. No, I said. I'm walking toward something better. You had 3 years to invest in me. You chose to invest in crystal plaques instead. He stared at me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he picked up the letter. 2 weeks, he said flatly. I expect you to fulfill your obligations until then. I will. Professionally and completely. I turned and walked out. The 2 weeks were uneventful. Gerald avoided me. Most of the partners did, actually. Word had spread, it always did, and there was a strange new distance in the hallways. People looked at me differently. Some with respect. Some with wariness. A few with something that looked almost like envy. Marcus cornered me in the break room on day 3. They're terrified, he said quietly. You should see the meetings they're having. Emergency sessions about client retention strategy. They should be worried. Are you going to take them? The clients? I poured myself a coffee. I'm not going to solicit anyone. That's a legal line I won't cross. But if they come to you? I sipped my coffee. Didn't answer. Marcus grinned. God. I wish I had your nerve. You have your own skills. Use them. On my last day, I cleaned out my desk. Didn't take much, I'd never been one to accumulate office clutter. A few personal photos. A desk plant that had somehow survived 3 years of fluorescent lighting. My diplomas, which I'd hung on the wall behind my chair. No one threw me a going-away party. I hadn't expected one. I handed in my laptop and badge to HR. Signed the exit paperwork. Walked out the front doors at 5:15 p.m. The sky was orange with sunset. The air smelled like rain. I drove home. The calls started the following Wednesday. First was David Patterson, CEO of Patterson Logistics. My biggest client. Nearly $1.5 million in annual billings. I'd worked with him for 2 years, and in that time, I'd gotten to know his kids' names, his wife's book club preferences, his obsession with fly fishing. Rachel, I heard you left Whitmore. I did. I'm at Meridian Partners now. I figured. Listen, I've had 3 different people from your old firm reach out this week. None of them know a damn thing about my business. I've been working with you because I trust you. That hasn't changed. I appreciate that, David. I'm moving my account. Just tell me what I need to do. I didn't ask him. He asked me. That distinction mattered. Over the next 6 weeks, the pattern repeated. Again and again. Teresa Huang from Apex Manufacturing. We'd met at an industry dinner 3 years ago, and I'd helped restructure her entire vendor contract portfolio. She called to say she was uncomfortable with the new point of contact at Whitmore. Asked if Meridian could handle her needs. Christopher Bell from Bell Family Holdings. 4th-generation money, notoriously difficult to work with, but we developed a report built on bluntness and bourbon. He sent an email, 2 sentences, asking for my new number. Angela Rodriguez from Coastal Ventures. Marvin Stein from Stein Brothers. The Worthington Foundation. One by one, they reached out. I didn't chase them. Didn't call them. Didn't drop hints or send suggestive messages. They came to me. By the end of month 2 at Meridian, I'd brought over $2.3 million in annual billing. More than 70% of my former portfolio. James Chen called me into his office. He was grinning. I've been doing this for 25 years, he said. I've never seen anything like it. They were my clients. I built those relationships. And you did it cleanly. Legals reviewed everything. There's not a single solicitation on record. Every single one of these clients initiated contact. That was the point. He shook his head, still smiling. Whitmore's going to be feeling this for years. I didn't disagree. The news from Whitmore came in pieces. First, through industry gossip. Then through Marcus, who'd stayed in touch via encrypted texts. Finally, through a LinkedIn update that made me set down my phone and just stare at the ceiling for a full minute. Gerald Whitmore was stepping down. The announcement framed it as a planned transition. After 30 years of building this firm, it read, Gerald is excited to explore new chapters and pass the torch to the next generation of leadership. The reality, according to Marcus, was less graceful. The revenue loss had been catastrophic. Not just the clients who'd followed me, though that alone was nearly $3 million, but the cascading effect on morale. 3 other senior associates had resigned within weeks of my departure, spooked by the HR email and what it implied. 2 of them took smaller accounts with them. The board had held emergency meetings. Investors had asked uncomfortable questions. Gerald's position, which had seemed unshakable for decades, suddenly looked fragile. He didn't go quietly. Marcus said there were shouting matches behind closed doors. Accusations of sabotage. Threats of legal action that went nowhere because, as Diana had predicted, everything I'd done was clean. But in the end, The numbers told the story. The firm had lost nearly 20% of its revenue in a single quarter. Gerald's leadership had been exposed as extractive, short-sighted, and ultimately self-destructive. They pushed him out. Not fired. Gerald Whitmore wasn't the type to be fired, but transitioned into an advisory role with no actual authority. A corner office with no desk. A title with no power. The crystal plaque he'd handed me probably cost more than his new annual budget. Diana called me when the news broke. "You saw?" "I saw. Any regrets?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. The late nights. The weekends sacrificed. The years I'd spent believing that loyalty would be rewarded, that hard work would be recognized, that if I just gave a little more, they'd finally see my value. The plaque, heavy in my hands. The room full of applause that meant nothing. "No," I said, "none. Good. Because this isn't over." "What do you mean?" "The firm's looking for someone to blame. You're the obvious target. I've been hearing rumblings about a lawsuit. Breach of contract, tortious interference, the usual kitchen sink approach. Let them try." "I'm serious, Rachel. This could get messy." "I'm serious too. Every move I made was documented. Every client who came to me reached out first. I have timestamps, emails, phone records. If they want to go to court, I'll bury them in their own paperwork." Diana was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed. "You really did think this through." "I had to. When you're dealing with people like Gerald, you don't get second chances. You get one shot, and you have to make it count." The lawsuit threat never materialized. According to Marcus, the firm's legal counsel advised against it. The case was too weak. The paper trail too clear. All it would do was generate publicity that highlighted exactly how badly Gerald had mismanaged his top performers. So they did nothing. Absorbed the loss. Tried to rebuild. It didn't go well. By the end of the fiscal year, Whitmore and Associates had lost another 8% of their revenue. The partnership track that had been dangled in front of so many hungry associates, including me, was quietly suspended. Too many senior people had left. Too many clients had walked. The math didn't work anymore. The firm didn't collapse. It was too established for that. But it shrank, contracted. Became a shadow of what it had been. And Gerald Whitmore, the man who'd smiled at me from that podium while handing me a trophy instead of a future, watched it happen from his advisory role corner office with nothing to do but think about where it all went wrong. My one-year anniversary at Meridian came and went without fanfare. No gala. No plaque. No performative speech in a rented ballroom. Instead, James called me into his office at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday. "Close the door," he said. I did. He slid a document across his desk. "Partnership agreement," he said. "Effective immediately. You've earned it." I picked it up. Read the first page. The numbers were better than I'd expected. Significantly better. "No ceremony?" I asked. "You want one?" "No, good. We save money on ballrooms." He grinned. "Welcome to the partnership, Rachel." I signed the document on the spot. No crystal plaque. No standing ovation. No $3 million in revenue handed over in exchange for a pat on the back and a passive-aggressive HR email. Just equity. Real money. And a seat at the table I'd earned. That night, I went home and poured myself a glass of wine. Stood on my balcony. Watched the city lights flicker against the dark. I thought about Gerald. About the smug certainty in his face when he'd handed me that trophy. About the way he'd smiled when I'd called him out, that confident, untouchable smile of a man who'd never faced real consequences. He wasn't smiling now. The wine was good. A Pinot from a vineyard I discovered last year. Expensive, but I could afford it now. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Heard about the partnership, congratulations. You deserve it." I typed back, "Thanks. How are things there?" His response came 30 seconds later. "Honestly? It's dead here. Half the associates are interviewing elsewhere. Gerald's advisory role is a joke. Everyone knows he's done." I read it twice. Thought about responding. Decided against it. What was there to say? I finished my wine. Went to bed. Slept better than I had in years. 3 months later, I ran into Gerald at a conference. The irony wasn't lost on me. Same conference where I'd met James Chen 3 years earlier. Same hotel. Same sterile ballroom with its predictable cocktail napkins and forgettable canapes. Gerald was standing near the bar, alone. He looked older than I remembered. Smaller, somehow. The silver hair that had seemed distinguished now just looked tired. Our eyes met across the room. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he walked toward me. I didn't retreat. Didn't avoid. Just stood there, drink in hand, and waited. "Rachel." His voice was neutral, controlled. Gerald. I heard about the partnership. Congratulations. Thank you. Silence. The kind that fills with all the things that aren't being said. You know, Gerald said slowly, I've had a lot of time to think these past few months. About how things ended. About what I could have done differently. And he looked at me. Really looked. For the first time since I'd known him, the mask was gone. No charm. No boardroom smile. Just a tired old man who'd gambled and lost. I underestimated you, he said. I thought you were like the others. Hungry, but manageable. I was wrong. You weren't wrong about the hungry part. No. A ghost of a smile. I suppose not. He extended his hand. I looked at it. The same hand that had gripped my shoulder at the gala. The same hand that had handed me a $200 plaque instead of what I was worth. I didn't take it. I'm not interested in reconciliation, Gerald. I'm not interested in absolution. You had every opportunity to do the right thing, and you chose not to. That's on you. His hand dropped. I understand. Good. I turned and walked away. Found a quiet corner near the windows. Didn't look back. The city spread out below me, lights glittering against the dark. Somewhere out there, Meridian's office sat in a tower much like this one. My office. My partnership. My future. I'd built it. Not because Gerald gave me permission. Not because Whitmore rewarded my loyalty. I'd built it because when they tried to pay me in trophies and empty promises, I refused to accept it. Some people spend their whole careers waiting to be recognized. I'd learned that recognition means nothing if it isn't backed by action. Gerald understood that now. Too late to matter, but he understood. My phone buzzed. A text from James. Deal closed. Hartfield Industries. $4.2 million annual. Your team did great work. I smiled. $4.2 million. More than I'd ever brought in at Whitmore. More than they'd ever valued me for. And this was just the beginning. I typed back, thanks for the update. Let's celebrate tomorrow. Drinks on me. Then I pocketed my phone, finished my drink, and walked out of the conference without looking back. The crystal plaque was probably still in a box somewhere. I hadn't bothered to unpack it when I moved. Employee of the Year. What a joke. I was a partner now. I didn't need their validation anymore. I never had.